You might be arguing a point. Maybe it's around a dinner table or in a business meeting, and you realize they're just not getting it. Why can't they see it the way I see it? I can see it so clearly. Why can't they see it? Well, influence isn't based on how well educated you are or how popular you are, but rather influence is based on your ability to make a situation visible. Influence is the power of the picture. A well-chosen metaphor can engage people and help them understand how something foreign or something new is like something familiar. When a metaphor helps a person make a connection, they're able to transfer what they already know or feel to a new situation. When a person gets a metaphor, they become their own influencer. And when you do a good job at finding an appropriate example, your work as an influencer is done. Now, I say the picture is important. How important is the picture? When I say the word apple, what do you think? What do you see? Now, you may see a Granny Smith or a Red Delicious or a Honeycrisp, or you may see a Macintosh. When I say the word apple, you see what represents apple to you, but when I show you an apple, you know exactly what I'm talking about. Now, there was a metaphor that I recently saw in a commercial. This commercial was trying to sell Medicare supplemental insurance. Now, buying insurance is not high on my list of fun things to do. It's a little bit below scraping wallpaper and buying underwear. But the commercial started with, picture this pizza as your Medicare Part B expenses, and they showed a pizza. Then they lifted the pizza and they showed a slice. The voiceover says, the big piece, 80%, is covered by Medicare. The 20%, that 20% slice is on you. This was a surprise. And this metaphor, this picture was shown in the first 22 seconds of a 2-minute commercial, and it did two things. First of all, it clearly showed me how I would be on the hook for 20% of the expenses if I went to a doctor or had outpatient services. And that 20% could be a lot. The slice made it very clear what my financial responsibility would be. Now, the second thing this did was it influenced me to order a pizza. Now, there was a work situation where I needed to find a metaphor, and I thought about using a Thanksgiving table. Let me give you some background. I was working in a long-term care facility that served people with severe and complex physical disabilities. 97% of the reimbursement for their care came from Medicare and Medicaid. Now, this means that there was not a lot of additional resources for us to use. We had to spend every dollar in a very thoughtful way. Routinely, we would get together with the residents and we would ask them, what are the sorts of activities would you like to do? And what sort of changes would you like, renovations would you like to make? Well, the residents were not bashful. They listed all kinds of things. The list was long. Some of the things on the list. Well, let's have a Super Bowl party. Someone suggested, let's go to the Super Bowl. Why don't we build a bistro? Or how about if we build a snack bar? Or a sports bar? They also suggested, well, why don't we renovate the beauty salon / barbershop? There was no problem in making suggestions. I was preparing to facilitate a meeting where we were going to focus with the residents, on what projects we should do for the next year. And I took all of their suggestions, I wrote them out on a flip chart page so they would be obvious to everybody in the room and referenceable. I also prepared an exercise. I wanted to have something in my back pocket. So the meeting started, and before we could launch into the agenda, several residents said, we want to add a couple more things to the list. I got a fresh flip chart page, and I started scribing what they had suggested. And as I'm going down to the bottom of this page, I asked, please, can I stop scribing, and I'd like to work an exercise with your permission to show us what's going on with these projects. They gave me permission, and I started the exercise. And this was addressing the residents and the staff in the room. I said, let's imagine that we were spending Thanksgiving Day together. Now over there, I want you to picture the dining room table with a good tablecloth and the fine china, flatware, and glasses. Now in the center of the table, I want you to picture there's a bowl of guacamole dip and chips, and there's a bowl of crab dip and crackers, and there's a couple of slices of pork roll left over from breakfast. They were with me. They were picturing it. Somebody said, I could even smell it. It was working. Then I said, now, there's two beautiful pies there. Can you picture the pumpkin pie and Mom's apple pie? They could. Now, as the dinner was getting to the point that it was ready to serve, the situation I asked them to imagine is that guacamole dip is turning brown. There's a little bit of crab dip and crackers left, and nobody's touched the pork roll. Now, imagine the parade of the side dishes coming out of the kitchen. Here comes the stuffing, followed by the mashed potatoes and gravy, and the peas and the carrots, and the green bean casserole, the one with the crunchy little French onion things on top. And there's okra, and there's coleslaw. There's fresh dinner rolls. This is looking good. I also say, hey, let's not forget the cranberry sauce and the coleslaw. And in my imaginary Thanksgiving, it's cranberry sauce, the jellied stuff, not that relish. So I said, now let's review what we have. This table is packed. There's no room for the turkey or the broccoli that's steaming. Okay, imagine what Mom would say, no room for the turkey? We can't have Thanksgiving without a turkey. So I turned to the residents and said, what are we going to do to get room on the table for the turkey? Now, think about this. What would you do to get room, and match some of your suggestions with what the residents told me they wanted to do? So I got a fresh flip chart page, had my pen in hand, and said, okay, fine, what are we going to do? They wondered whether I was serious, that typical thing when you're facilitating a group of people, does he really want me to answer? I let the pause go pregnant, and it finally gave birth to the first suggestion. Somebody yells out, put a leaf on the table, make the table bigger. And I snap back, no, we can't make the table bigger. It's fixed, can't get any bigger. A little, oh. Then the next thing, they said, well, take stuff off the table. And again, I snap right back, okay, that's great, but which of your favorite side dishes do you want to take off the table? They thought another minute. Then they said, well, look, there's only a little bit of crab dip. How about if we eat the crab dip, and then we'll be able to take that plate off? Good idea. Then somebody suggested, well, why don't you get rid of the pork roll? Nobody's going to eat that. Get rid of the guacamole. It's brown. Nobody's going to eat it brown. And then somebody said, get rid of the okra. And a little voice in the corner said, nobody likes okra anyway. So the ideas are really flowing now. Somebody else said, well, you've got peas and carrots in two bowls. Why don't you combine them into one? They go nice together. We'll be able to take a bowl off. This is sounding good. Somebody said, the pies. We don't need the pies during dinner. Put them in the kitchen and bring them out for dessert, where we're cooking. One more suggestion they made was, don't steam the broccoli. We don't need it. We've got a table that's filled. Well, I thanked them. I also congratulated them because their approach to handling a packed Thanksgiving table had the same quality of suggestions that a project manager would have when handling a packed list of projects. I started to debrief it. I said, okay, who's kidding who? The Thanksgiving table, that is everything you need to do projects. Time, people, and equipment. The plates on the table, they are projects in progress and proposed projects. Then I took the list that I had scribed of their suggestions and put it next to a list of suggestions that a professional project manager would have to handling too many projects. And I started to run through them. I said, that's a great idea to finish up that little bit of crab dip. And I said, if a project manager were saying that, they would say, let's shift resources, finish up a project, and then get it off of our list, or in this case, get it off our table. Putting the peas and carrots together, if a project manager were to say that, they would say, well, let's scan our list of projects, finding projects that are similar, shift resources to them, knock that one out, and then get it off the table. Get rid of the guacamole, the pork roll, the okra. A project manager would say it in terms that would say, let's take a look at the projects that are in progress and determine if they still add value. If they add value, if they will continue to add value when they're completed, let's finish them. If not, let's get rid of them. The stop cooking the broccoli, don't cook the broccoli, is the simple wisdom of don't start new projects if you don't have resources to complete them. So I started seeing head nods. They saw the game we were playing. They started to understand what they were doing. They were suggesting projects with no regard as to how many resources we had to complete them. They understood that suggesting a project was free, but implementing a project took resources. And they also recognized very clearly that our organization had a finite number of resources. So what's the benefit? What was the benefit immediate and then long term in running this exercise? Well, first and foremost, it enables us to collaborate. We weren't at odds about what should be on the list. We were collaborating on what do we do with the list. Together, we prioritized projects. We scanned for projects. We identified some that we could stop temporarily. We identified projects that we could put off, and we identified projects that would no longer add value, so let's terminate them, stop them entirely. So what did this do to some real projects? Well, the residents recognized that going to the Super Bowl, while it would be fun, it would cost a lot, and it would also serve a very small number of the residents. They looked at a bistro and a sports bar and a snack bar, and they recognized that a better use of the money, the scarce resource, would be to focus on redoing the hair salon / barbershop and making a place for people to congregate. So it was like a little town square, and everybody used the barbershop and beauty salon. Another residual effect was that as we did work together in the future, I heard people start reusing the references. I actually heard somebody say, well, which of these projects are peas and carrots? And then somebody said, that project is brown guacamole. And I can tell you, the reference brown guacamole was way better than the reference they would have used had we not ever run that project. So the point is that if you take a moment to think about who you're trying to influence and spot a metaphor that will speak to them, they will be able to recognize how something new or foreign is like something that's familiar. Influence is in the power of the picture. Do you see what I mean? Thank you very much.